Do you want to be a puppeteer? Welcome to Puppetry 101. In this video, we're going to talk about the technical techniques to performing puppetry. We're going to be specifically covering hand rod puppets with a moving mouth, although many of the techniques can be applied to other forms of puppetry. I created this guide to puppetry worksheet that you can download for free on my website. These techniques will work for monitor puppetry or stage puppetry. So whether you're making your own videos with puppets, or you're auditioning or performing for a production of Avenue Q, these techniques should help. And if you don't have a puppet yet, that's okay. You don't need one to follow along in this video. At the end of this video, I have recommendations on how to get your own puppet, some advice for building puppets, and if you don't want to make one, where to buy one. Let's get started. Control is a fundamental aspect of puppetry. Anyone can wave a puppet around, but a puppeteer is in full control of their performance. Having subtleties in your performance can really bring a puppet to life. It's the same with acting. You can really draw an audience in when your performance is natural and authentic. A lot of puppeteers start off with really large movements, which can make it kind of seem like a gag and inauthentic. And getting control of your puppet only comes with practice, so practice as much as you can. The first technique we're going to talk about is lip sync. Here are a couple important things to keep in mind. Syllables, important beats, emphasizing certain words and phrases, and the Henson punch. Generally, a puppet's mouth should open once for each syllable. The best thing to try first is to count to 10 with your puppet. For right now, I'm just going to use my hand. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You may have noticed all those numbers were one syllable except for number 7. For number 7, we had to open it twice. That's a great place to start, but one thing I want you to keep in mind is that the techniques for lip sync can change based on the speed and rhythm of the dialogue. To demonstrate this, I'm going to have Arlo say my name. He's going to say it slowly, and then he's going to say it fast. And notice, Adam Krutinger has 5 syllables. Adam Krutinger. Watch carefully to see if you can spot the difference. When he says it slowly, he hits all 5 syllables. When he does it fast, he only opens his mouth 3 times. Watch carefully. Adam Krutinger. Adam Krutinger. So if your character needs to talk really fast, or if your character is super excited or yelling, you're probably going to have to hit less syllables. If your character is talking fast and you're trying to hit every single syllable, it's going to look like a motor mouth, and it's just not going to look that good. These are similar techniques that animators use when animating cartoons. If a cartoon character is yelling, they can't hit all the syllables for those either. So I'd argue a lot of animators might make natural puppeteers. So the next thing I want to talk about is what some people call the Henson punch. This technique makes your lip sync seem a little bit more believable for a puppet. Because it's one thing to just hit the syllables, but you want to make it feel like the words are coming out of the mouth. So if you're doing your puppetry just like this, it's very stiff. You want to make it feel like the character's almost spitting those words out. It can also give it a little bit of head movement. So rather than this, you're almost punching forward. For example, hi, I'm Arlo. Hi, I'm Arlo. It makes it seem more like the character is spitting the words out. One of the most common pieces of advice I see most puppeteers give for lip sync is to make sure that you don't flap the top of the head of the puppet. And it makes perfect sense. Just like people talk, our jaws go down, the top of our head doesn't go up. Though that does have a lot to do with lip sync, I see it more of a technique of eye focus. Think about it. If the top of the head of your puppet is moving all around, then the eye focus clearly isn't there. To me, eye focus is the most important aspect of bringing a character to life. It's how you make a connection with your audience. Think of the feeling you get when you look into the eyes of a cute little puppy. Though of course the whole entire puppy is cute, even if it's not looking at you. When it locks eyes with you, it's just a whole nother level of connection and cuteness. Eye focus is especially important when you have multiple characters in the scene at one time. Imagine watching a television show where none of the characters looked at each other when they were talking, or if they were looking up at the ceiling or down at the floor. Not only is it not natural, but it's also very distracting to the audience. Where your character is looking helps inform the audience where they should be looking too. I'll show you 2 quick examples with Arlo. You let me know which one you think makes a better connection. Hi guys, welcome to my show. Hi guys, welcome to my show. I think the difference is pretty clear. The next thing I want to talk about is ground. Making it look like your character is actually standing in the real world also helps it make it seem more realistic. A common thing you'll notice with beginner puppets is their puppets tend to look like they're floating around a little bit. Sometimes they'll sink down in the camera a little bit or be too high. When those things happen, it doesn't seem like it's actually standing there. So it's important to keep that consistent. Same thing goes if your character's walking by. If you just slide the character across with your arm, it's gonna look more like it's ice skating. And if the character's actually ice skating, that's a good thing. But a lot of times I've seen that happen when the character is supposed to be walking into the scene. That really breaks the illusion that this character is in the real world. Making your character look like it's actually walking makes it seem much more realistic. Here are some things to think about when giving your characters life. The first thing is characterization. Think about this character as if it was a real person. What are their likes and dislikes and their interests? Especially if you have multiple characters that you do, having a lot of contrast between those personalities can help a lot. Another thing from a performance standpoint is giving your character breath. The simple act of a character taking a breath as an expression of a feeling, or even if the character just got done yelling and it needs to catch its breath too, those types of little details can bring a lot of life to your character. Another thing just to pay attention to is the body position of your puppet. Sometimes you see a lot of characters that can look very stiff looking, or look like they're always looking up, or look like their head is always to the side. Another very common mistake that I see is when characters have arm rods, they tend to have the puppet's hands up here all the time. Generally, you want to keep them down and natural. Anytime you're thinking of the posture of a puppet, kind of look at regular people as an example. You really want it to look natural. Something extra I just wanted to put in here as an idea, or at least a starting point, is a lot of times in videos and on stage, they have to have the puppet do some sort of simple dances. And a lot of puppet dance movements that I see people try to do, a lot of times just don't look natural. Don't forget that you always need to take a step back and really look at how it looks and ask yourself, is it natural? But at least as a baseline, a good simple move, if you need your character to do a little dance or boogie, is to just move the hands opposite to the head like this. I know it's very simple, but it's pretty effective in most situations. Again, I do encourage you to come up with more specific and unique moves, but do take a step back and look at it to make sure it actually looks natural. Just because people are laughing and thought it was funny doesn't necessarily mean that it looked good or was quality puppetry. Otherwise, it's just kind of a gag. Now, in conclusion, there's just a couple things I want to say. At the end of the day, you could practice forever, and you can always grow and make yourself better, but there comes a time that you have to just dive in there and start performing. Sometimes you can actually learn faster by just jumping in and starting to perform. There's something about having an audience that puts a little bit more pressure on you about making sure that your puppetry is quality. But if anything ever goes wrong during a performance, try not to be hard on yourself. Really use it as a learning experience. We all make mistakes, and the best thing you can do is learn from those mistakes. But you might think, but what if I'm in the middle of the performance and I still have, a couple more minutes left on stage? Sometimes it happens, especially if you are a beginner performer. You can get flustered. But a lot of times, noticing that you're being flustered can make you even more distracted and flustered. Sometimes you just have to pause for a second and collect your thoughts. Sometimes it happens. Maybe you get a little hiccup and your lip syncing was off. Best thing you can do is forget about that and keep going. Because if you're thinking about a mistake that you made earlier, chances are that's going to distract you and have you make another mistake in another moment or two. So it goes kind of back to the thing I said in the beginning about being in control. It's so easy to turn a puppet performance into a gag. I see it all the time. And I guess that has its place. But I'd really love to see more thoughtful, artful puppetry in the world. And if you start making your own videos, I'd love to see them. I'd love to do a compilation video after I get a lot of submissions recommending people's videos. A couple years ago, I started a Facebook group called Krutinger Puppets Tutorial Q&A. That's a great place for you to post your video if you want me to see it and be included. So please send them over my way. You could also send me a message on Instagram too, but the better bet is in the Facebook group. So that's it for the part 1. A lot of this was just kind of general puppetry techniques. In the future, I'd like to do a part 2 where we talk more about creating one character and developing it into its own personality. Comment down below if that's something you'd like to see. If you want to make a simple puppet very quickly, this tutorial should help. If you have all the materials, you could probably put it together in about a half hour, and they're super cute and simple. If you want to get a little bit more in-depth into puppet making, I made a 22 episode series on making this guy. You can follow along exactly or change the features to make it your own unique character. And there are free patterns you can download on my website for both of those puppets. But that second series is pretty involved. Like I said, there's 22 episodes. If you want a slightly more advanced puppet but don't want to commit all that time, this series might be good for you too. This is only a 4-episode series, and each episode is only 10 minutes. And it covers the entire process of building this puppet. It's a good place to start. But if you're not interested in making a puppet at all, there's another option. You can purchase a puppet. For purchasing a puppet, the best place that I recommend is Axtell.com. My good buddy Steve Axtell started this company. Even if you're not familiar with his name, I'm sure you are familiar with his work. A lot of his puppets have been featured on America's Got Talent from different performers. They have puppets to fit the need of every level of performer. They have a whole series of beginners puppets that are extremely affordable. And they also do custom-made puppets. Those are mostly for very established professional performers and for companies. There's one more thing I want to talk about, and that's getting involved in the puppetry community. There are 2 places I need you to check out. Here in the US, you should really consider joining Puppeteers of America. There's a lot of benefits to becoming a member, but one of my favorites is the quarterly puppetry journal that comes out. It's a great way to learn about puppetry, and a great way to learn about and connect with other puppeteers. And if you're not in the US, you should really check out UNIMA. They also have a lot of benefits and have a great puppetry magazine as well. And you can become a member of both like I am. And all that information is linked down below. Another great way to learn about the behind the scenes of puppetry is to check out our podcast called Puppeteers. We've interviewed tons of puppeteers that do all different styles of puppetry, and they offer a lot of advice to people at all different parts of their career. Alright, thanks for watching guys. I'll see you next time.